Hey, Chad Tomaschefski here. Gonna head over to our round table where technology meets and becomes that universal language that makes sure everything ticks in your world. Let's get into it. I'm Chad Tomaschefski, Chief Growth Officer with Tridon Communications. We're talking to industry leaders about the technology that's changing their business. This is TSI Today. Hey, Chad Tomaschefski back here with TSI Today at our round table and inside of our new studio here recording today. Just want to make a quick comment on our round table, the infamous rum barrel or wine barrel, whatever you have you. I want to thank the folks over at Enta for putting this back together for us so we can continue to do this. TSI Today is really about technology and how technology is a universal language. And that's what we have our three guests here today about. We've had individual interviews with each of you. And I think the next thing I'd like to unpack a little bit about is edge computing. If we think about it for a second, a lot of edge devices are where the industry is going. Whether it's a camera, the knowledge inside the camera is much more than it used to be. It used to be that all cameras going back to an NVR or a VCR back in my day. and that's evolved, that a lot of that technology is in the camera now. A lot of those cameras can't run without particular cabling that CommScope provides. And a lot of them are PoE, so we have to have the right kind of cabling we're putting inside there. And none of them work without the right network switching gear, right? So we need Kofi and Fortinet as well. If we think about edge computing today, Kofi, do you want to start us off and kind of talk to us a little bit about the evolution? Because I think it's changed in the last, even just 2 years, not to mention the last 5 or 10 on the devices we're seeing on the edge.
No, absolutely. I think it depends on where we're talking. Like we talked about a lot of the kind of different devices themselves where they're used, whether it's, you go from a camera perspective or you go to any of the connected devices, IoT devices that may be out there. Could be light bulbs, could be panels. I guess that was one of the cool things that I saw. Like when you think about PoE panels, different elements like that, and then how they communicate and phone home to maybe some of their cloud services, right? So one of the things, in the past, you kind of hit on it as a whole. A lot of these devices beforehand, they usually were done either with coax or something like that, and then basically came back to like some kind of recording device, and then it would be isolated. Now there's a huge convergence between, leveraging kind of the Ethernet framework to basically provide either power, connectivity, etc. to these devices. And then sometimes what happens is people are just troubleshooting certain devices. I just need access to the internet, and then accidentally bridge networks together, right? So when we look at a lot of things, especially from a connectivity perspective, we've seen a lot of things where you plug it in now to leverage switches and power derived in switches to power these devices, but then also how they connect in not just to a local service, but into a cloud service. So there's a lot of evolution and change, with what I would call it, to some of the edge devices, edge computing devices, and how we're using it, and how everything today is actually very connected, whether that's going right up until, I think we were talking about it very specifically, like there's HVAC systems that are fully IP based and fully connected. There's we think about OT networks and all the devices that are in there, same concept. So yeah.
Jay, connectivity is super critical to a lot of the devices we're seeing on edge networks today. But the cabling, I think, trumps it in some aspect. I mean, obviously connectivity it has to be there. Without it, it's just some barbed wire.
That's right.
But using the right cable is critical for PoE devices.
Correct.
Walk us through a couple different solutions that you might be able
to.
And
I think Kofi touched on it. The word powering comes up over and over, and PoE is here to stay, and it's actually growing. And I would say that the evolution of Cat 6A is not just PoE from a wattage standpoint, 90 watts now and so on and so forth, but we're also seeing a demand for smaller diameter Cat 6A, right? So the cable itself is becoming smaller and smaller with the same output, with the same functionality, just we're able to put more in a cable tray, for example, by having a smaller diameter. But I think the important thing here to remember is that having the ability to to transmit the data and the power on the same cable to the edge, to the device, is really what we're facilitating here with the Cat6A solution.
We're even seeing devices like Wi-Fi 7 now that are requiring 2 Category 6A cables to go to each WAP.
Correct.
Which is a pile more infrastructure, but in order to bring the amount of data they're harvesting through there for IT and OT devices on the network, it's critical for them.
It's absolutely critical, and we were just talking about that outside. As Wi-Fi reduced the cabling, and from a footage standpoint, not at all, because of what you just mentioned, right? We're seeing, you need 2 cables to an access point and so on and so forth. So again, connectivity, powering, right? Powered by that connectivity, by that cable is and I think the demand will keep growing.
Awesome. Hassan, the Milestone software solution got its feet wet with security, really, but it's branched off into so many different areas.
Yes.
So that it can notify a data center that the temperature's gotten too hot inside there, and it's unable to control the temperature on that HVAC that we talked about. Could be a different issue. Maybe somebody left the door open that shouldn't have been open, and in that case, maybe it triggered an alarm. But when it comes to edge computing, where's Milestone getting involved?
Yeah, and we're an open platform. Milestone is an open platform, and we have to integrate with all these devices, giving the customer the freedom of choice. You're not locked with a specific camera or a specific speaker. And now what happened when these cameras become smarter? They're doing edge computing. Now we're obliged to bring in not only video, we're bringing in the metadata, which is basically the algorithm translating what the edge computing is doing or seeing, what the camera is seeing, and sending that data into the VMS. We have to talk their language. So goes back to being an open platform. We're integrated on a higher level now with all these edge computing. But again, if in situations that a customer needs a specific requirement, we could probably do our own edge computing in our servers or in the cloud. We're talking cloud. We've had our discussions, me and Jay. A lot of big move to the cloud. We actually have our own cloud platform. We call it Milestone Kite, and it's been running for almost 7 years now. And we could even offer our customer this piece where you could have that analytics on the cloud, and this is where we going back to the basics of Milestone. So basically, as a Milestone being an open platform, we comply with all these edge devices, and we could stream, we could comply, we could integrate with the edge computing.
Awesome. I want to try something different. When we see a industrial facility, a new building, and a downtown core going up, we can automatically assume that between 1% and 2% of the value of that particular project is going to be the telecommunications scope that's inside there. So if you're looking at a $1 billion hydrogen facility that is being talked about inside of Alberta, you have a $1 billion hydrogen facility, and only 1% is that telecoms. But I find that a lot of people don't put the emphasis on telecommunications they should. It's often an afterthought. They haven't put the legwork into it, and they really need to. So I thought, what would be kind of neat is let's build a plant. Let's build a hydrogen facility today. I think we can do it I bet you we can do the technology inside of 5 minutes, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we need some fiber to come from the D-Mark. It's gonna go 25 kilometers. That's gonna be single mode fiber, right?
Single mode fiber, absolutely. 25 kilometers, I would say that.
Okay.
Now inside the building, we can actually look at what we need to do from a multimode standpoint. And our recommendation will probably be OM5.
OM5, especially in the data center.
Especially in the data center.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Now, from the data center, we're moving really fast here. I know we're missing a whole bunch of different pieces here. We got a bunch of Fortinet gear inside there. So that Fortinet gear, the first thing we're going to be doing is coming into a firewall.
Yeah, it depends on where it is, but yeah, in some cases you will definitely have your different zones that you'll build out from a firewall perspective, depending on what model you're going to follow, whether that's going to be, kind of the Purdue model, which a lot of OT vendors typically follow, and then what levels you want to segregate in between there. There may be some requirements that you might have. There's an idea of what technologies we'll be protecting and where. As you know, we can go very low level. There might be PLCs or different devices or platforms that you're going to be using, that you're going to want to secure that traffic and only ensure that that device is communicating with another one, and then you have how you feed that data up the stack so that business can typically get visibility on that side. So
from there, of course, then we're jumping right into the switchgear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Switchgear is, and believe it, switch and Wi-Fi is very important now in some of these modern platforms.
Sure.
We have a lot of, depending on the ruggedized requirements, depending on what that looks like inside the customer's environments, whether that's going to be firewall switches and APs all to be ruggedized, or it might be just connectivity. We might have outdoor antennas and stuff like that we might need and require as well, depending on where we're sending the traffic to. So yeah.
We think of a lot of facilities, obviously, a lot of people don't think of Wi-Fi. Obviously, you're going to want Wi-Fi inside the camp areas, those kind of things, so that staff have access to that. But, mesh networking with inside there, understanding geolocating with Wi-Fi 7 to different product or different IoT devices with inside the entire plant is going to be super critical. Yeah. So we've gone from having the infrastructure very quickly coming into the facility. We've, in terms of fiber optics, now we've taken that, we've gone from a fiber entrance cabinet, likely provided by CommScope, into some switchgear and firewalls and Wi-Fi access points. So we've kind of got that curtain or that blanket that's covering the facility.
We do, but there's also other parts where we think about visibility. I think is one of the key pieces. So there's going to be a lot of devices out there in the field. We talked about two different areas. One is specifically kind of OT control network stuff, and then there's a division between what you'd have in a camp. And yes, when you're in a camp, you want to have as much
Netflix
open technology as possible. But even as we look at what devices are connecting into the network, there may be some that we don't want, or somebody may be trying to connect a corporate device into that network. It's understanding what that looks like. So device profiling becomes very, very key. So that layer 7 visibility becomes extremely, extremely important as you start expanding in there as well.
So after that, we're going to some devices inside the field. So Jay, we've got some devices that are approximately 2 kilometers out. What product set are we going to use to get there?
It depends. In a campus environment, we would probably position our powered fiber solution that will bring data and power to the device and be able to obviously transmit and convert, do all that technology inside a unit that's outside right next to the device.
Awesome. And then inside that aren't hitting those limitations of 2 kilometers. We've got that standard 100-meter runs, but we're inside of a plant. So we have to ask some questions, but likely we're going to be using some sort of category cable inside there.
Absolutely, and depending again on the needs. The interesting thing for us is always, what are you trying to achieve, right? What are you trying to achieve? And once we determine that, now we can go into what solutions that we have. Yeah. So within 100 meters, obviously we can, provide a whole wide of products and probably would suggest Cat 6A. But I do want to take the opportunity to mention we do have solutions for over 100 meters as well on the copper side.
Just learned about this, actually.
That's right, yeah. So we have a solution called GigaReach that is giving you plenty of headroom over 100 meters because we're seeing more and more applications needing that. So, it's a great opportunity to mention that we're not just limited to 100 meters nowadays anymore on copper.
That's great. Awesome. Now, of course, there's all those devices, CCTV, access control, Wi-Fi access points, building automation, and plant automation. That's all going to be in there. IoT devices all over the place, and we want to manage that. So we need to bring it back to a central platform that can take all these different technologies and allow the hands inside of a NOC to operate that. And we would lean on Milestone for something like that. So how does it work where, it seems so complicated. I've got a camera system over here and I want to make it work with an access control. I can figure that out. But now I wanted to make it work with all the IoT devices on there. So I know that an area of the plant is heating up or cooling down, or I know that an area of the plant where a device has actually stopped manufacturing. How is it that we're integrating all that together? It's kind of mind-boggling, I think, to a lot of people.
Which is actually what we have in Milestone today is we support the industry protocols. We could bring in OPC, BACnet, and it's all on TCP/IP. It's all on the network. We could get all this data fed into Milestone, and we could create our rule using our rule engine. Based on an overheated room, we could trigger an alarm. But what's really important, while we connect all these devices or IoTs, what are you doing in terms of redundancy? What happens if a server fails? If it's a physical server, or we have what we call our redundancy measures. If it's part of our higher level software. We're a software company. We sell our software in different versions, and the highest version comes in with all the features, all the bells and whistles. If a server fails, we're basically not losing video. You're not losing any of your data because it's instantly failing to a standby or a failover server. Or if the customer would like to have this hybrid approach, where they would like to move part of their services to the cloud, let's say AWS or Azure, we could move our management server to the cloud. This gives them this high availability where they're not relying on the edge and having only like the recording servers on the edge. Or if they select to go fully cloud, we could support that. We could even do the camera to cloud, where we could use the SD cards to store locally and push to the cloud on demand, or continuously feed that video to the cloud. So we have this flexibility, but from a user interface, if I'm a user in a hydrogen facility, I'm more concerned about the security. I want to make sure only the people with the right privilege that they're allowed to be in certain areas. We could help with that. We could even help with the health and safety, where we could pick up a person not wearing a PPE, a vest. We could instantly use that camera to notify us if one of the contractors or employees on site not wearing a PPE. We could even help with the legislation part, where if there is a leak or a spill from any of the pipes, or even we have some analytics that we could monitor flares, the flame coming out from the exhaust.
Can you write code to it then? So let's say that there's something that we wanted it to do. We have a froth of liquid natural gas that's going through a trough that's, let's call it 4 feet wide by 3 feet high, and it's producing bubbles. When the froth hits a certain level, we need to add chemical on it and reduce the size of the froth. Okay. Could we write a code to that to allow that?
We don't have to write it. It's already there. We have those analytics, and they're integrated into Milestone. We could actually bring in the right technology partner, and we actually have it. We've done it many times. We have also like that analytics that look at pipes, and if any spills or that happen on any of the pipes, we get notification instantly. So we're basically looking at those pipes and trying to detect any leakage. And I've mentioned, the flame detection. We could have a camera look at a flame, and for environmental reasons, we want to make sure our flame is continuously on, and because if it's off, environment we're basically emitting gases to the space. And basically, what we could do, we could monitor those data and say at any time, and we keep that record. My flame was emitting more smoke today. As an operator, I need to go and readjust my SCADA system. We could provide all this data for the users.
That's great. Well, folks, it's going to take a few more than 15 minutes to design an entire hydrogen facility, but we're not far off. I think the important thing here to understand, guys, is that while we're only 1% of the overall construction value, we are likely the most important thing that you will put into any building you're building in downtown cores today. Any plant, oil, gas, or otherwise, your technology is the most important thing that you have inside that facility today. And it's important to pay attention to it. It's important to engage smart minds like these fellas to do a gaps and needs analysis, to understand the technologies you're using and what you're going to be using inside your facility. And based on that, we'd love to be part of your future with inside of technology. So would all these gentlemen, and thank you again, guys, for being part of this today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Chad.
Absolutely.
Hey, Chad Tomaschefski, wrapping up our sessions here again at TSI Today. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time. We're diving into 3 new guests, talking about technology and how it affects your lives. Thanks for watching TSI Today. I'm Chad Tomaschefski, Chief Growth Officer with Tridon Communications. Catch up with us next time when we learn more about technology and how it's changing business today.